Hey y'all. In this video, I want to talk about the way that we interpret what we see or hear, or really any perception that we're taking in. So, when we are perceiving an event that happens in life, right? There are different levels of interpretation that we have. There is the results, which is the final interpretation that we have based on what we saw, and then underneath that there are many different layers as well. For example, I may recount a story where I see a guy walking across the street and his face looked a certain way that I would interpret as, him angrily walking across the street. Someone else might interpret that differently and say that, he's sadly walking across the street. And the implications of each one of those interpretation gives me different information, right? It's information that you interpreted, and so the the you can, based on that information, you can make a whole bunch of other conclusions about that situation. And if you've interpreted that event incorrectly, everything else after that will be incorrect, most likely. So, given a situation, if let's say you're facing a problem, and you've interpreted the situation a certain way, and with that interpretation, you carry on acting or reacting, the way that you do. And if you are, if the way that you've acted or reacted is not matching to that interpretation, there might be something wrong with your interpretation. And so if you really want to figure this out, you need to either, talk to somebody to see if they could give you a different perspective, or you can journal about this event, this situation that you've faced, and then as you are journaling about this, go back and break down each one of the words that you're using to recall this event, and ask yourself, am I sure that this interpretation is correct? Like I said, there's different levels of interpretation, so each word that you use might be an interpretation of the event. Like, his face looked angry. Looking angry is an interpretation based on what facial expressions you saw on his face. It might be, curled eye, eyebrows, and the way that his mouth and nose looked. His nose might be flaring. These are the little bits of information that then you interpret as an angry face. And if you get those things wrong, then you've interpreted the situation incorrectly, and that might lead you to the wrong solutions to the problem that you're facing. And so this is also what you could look out for when someone else is telling you a story. Like, pay close attention to whether or not the person is telling you a fact or they're telling you an interpretation that they have. And oftentimes I see it's the interpretation that it's getting, that people are caught up in. And if you're able to listen carefully and help them discern what is fact and what is interpretation, then it helps them open up their minds and their eyes as to how they might be able to look at the situation differently. Because what there are many ways of interpreting something based on key facts that someone might have not seen. Like, two people looking at the same situation, they each will see different things. And so if those two people are able to talk to one another and be able to share their perspective, which is what they actually saw, then it's more likely that they will come to a better conclusion or interpretation about the event. And so next time you face these situations or someone is talking about a situation, look out for these things and pay attention to whether or not they're facts or interpretations, and then act accordingly. Hope that was helpful.